You know, recommendations can be great. Maybe someone recommended this podcast, and here you are. But home projects are different. If a podcast isn't your thing, you lose a few minutes. If you hire your cousin's neighbor to mount your TV, you might end up with a lopsided screen and wall damage. Maybe I know a guy just isn't enough for your home. That's why Thumbtack works. It matches you with top-rated local pros with photos, reviews, and credentials all in one place. For your next home project, try Thumbtack. Hire the right pro today.
Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's a sergeant major, a sniper team leader, influencing account of urban combat in Ramadi and the psychological cost of fulfilling their mission, leadership under fire, and of course the author of the book One is a Warrior, none other than Mr. Harry Martinez.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the book. It means a great deal to me. And I want to point out it's not just words on a page. It's about lessons learned the hard way. And I wanted to share that experience about the soldiers that were around me, the ones that I was responsible for. And I brought in several factors that really, through their efforts and mine, collectively, we were very successful and exceeded our expectations. We were a National Guard, Army National Guard team assigned to regular Army units, meaning they do it every day. We do it on a part-time basis, if at all. In this case, the team was made up of tankers who basically we call that armor. And because of the conflict and the way it was being fought, on a handshake, they were basically converted to infantry with virtually no training. And I'm an infantryman, learned it in the Marine Corps, went and fought in the Gulf War in Kuwait, later left the Marine Corps, became a police officer, gathered some more skills there, and that experience brought me to Ramadi. And I fused my SWAT team training as a police sniper and police sniper instructor and my Marine Corps training when I was assigned to 1st Battalion, 6th Marines Surveillance Target Acquisition Platoon. In short, Scout Sniper Platoon. And
well, Mr. Harry, here on Book 101 Review, we salute you, we celebrate you, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to us as well as to the world. Thank you. Thank you for sharing One is a Warrior. So let's talk about the book itself. One is a Warrior is a powerful statement. In your experience, what is the critical experience or difference between being a warrior and being a leader? Can you be on without the other, especially in a sniper team where precision and trust are everything?
That's a great question. And in my experience, let's talk about a warrior first. What is a warrior? And a warrior is an individual who accepts his fate. And he operates in that kinetic environment or chaotic environment with discipline, with knowledge, with experience. They often lead from the front. They are not one to simply follow. They will speak up. They might hurt people's feelings, and they may inspire others to follow. So a warrior comes in with grit, and it's based often on education, experience, training, and philosophy. Whereas a leader, it's about responsibility. It's about having the ability to influence others to get them to do what you need to get done. It's about accountability. When you're in a leadership position, you are responsible for everything that happens, good and bad. You forfeit all excuses.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
So sometimes as a leader, if things go bad, it's your fault. And a good leader will accept that. Now, he doesn't just take it on his shoulder and go, well, that was a bad day. He'll go back and analyze, reassess, and come up with a different course of action. That's a responsible leader. Now, a warrior can be a leader, and a leader may never experience that level of a kinetic environment where he has to become a warrior. I'll use history to cite an example. In World War II, Eisenhower was in charge of the European theater, and he came from MacArthur's staff in the Pacific when he took that position. He never saw combat, but he was a great leader. He built relationships. He built trust. He made every individual a stakeholder in the planning. And he did it across European countries. That takes talent. And in the case of MacArthur, well, he did see combat in World War I. And so he was able to forge a different type of leadership based on his experiences as well. And both were quite successful. So,
Interesting, Mr. Harry. You draw a distinct line between moral injury and PTSD. For a civilian audience that often conflates the two, can you explain what moral injury feels like? Is it a wound of the psyche of the soul, or how does the healing process differ from traditional trauma therapy?
okay, so moral injury comes down to how you perceive events. And PTSD is the event itself. So, and I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm qualified, but I'm just going off my own personal experiences. So I'll give you one. In the case of moral injury, when I arrived in Ramadi after doing police work for over a decade, it was odd to me to enter the homes of civilians with no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion, nothing. As snipers, we were empowered to walk out there, seek a house, and if it was occupied, we would sequester the entire family into a single room. And sometimes we weren't nice about it. And after years of enforcing law, understanding law, living in a land ruled by law, that bothered me a great deal in the beginning. It bothered me a lot because these people were civilians. And the enemy, they also dressed like civilians. It wasn't clear cut. Your enemy could be a boy on a bicycle. Your enemy could be a taxi driver. Your enemy could be an Iraqi law enforcement officer. There was no clear picture of what he looked like or she looked like, or the children, because the children were used to support combat operations on their side. And so some found it difficult to shoot women. Some found it difficult to shoot civilians who were perceived to be combatants, or through their actions, they became combatants. And those things come back to haunt you. They haunt what you thought naively, to an extent, was it challenges your right and wrong. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, Mr. Harry. And in Ramadi, you're making a split second decision that ended lives to save others. You mentioned that every victory left behind faces burn into memory. How do you reconcile the tactical success of a mission with a personal moral cost of those facts and, of course, faces that refuse to fade?
Well, there's a lot of questions in that question.
Mhm.
Let me begin by saying the way I perceived it was my country had been attacked. 3,000
Okay.
civilians were murdered by a private organization. And under the picture, the situation we were facing, it brought us into Afghanistan and Iraq. In my situation on that tour, I was in Iraq. And what happened before I reached Iraq was the Battle of Fallujah had occurred a few months before my arrival, almost like 6 months before I arrived. So two battles had happened in Fallujah, and those that survived the Marine and Army's offensive operations and survived that, they went into Ramadi. Now, they began to exploit the civilians. They murdered them, they tortured them, they extorted them, they forced their women into marriages, they used their children to facilitate combat operations. They were terror. So being a law enforcement, to me, it was very easy to draw between the good guy and the bad guy. And so it was, the split second decision isn't a reaction. That's not what snipers do. That's not what I did anyway. I'll speak for myself. We would go in, we would select a spot based on intelligence, whether we considered high activity or we knew there was a target in the area. And based on those circumstances, we would start observation. And that observation often revealed individuals acting suspiciously. And then you take into the account the totality of circumstances, the history of the location, who you're up against, what has intelligence revealed. And then you start to see if there's patterns and trends. And then based on your rules of engagement, and you can determine positive identification of a combatant, you take the shot. What separates us from most conventional forces is that we're preempting an attack. We're attacking them before they even do anything against American forces or coalition forces. So it's a one-on-one kill.
Mr. Harry, you've discussed how civilians misunderstand rules of engagement or ROE. Can you walk us through the weight of that burden? What's the psychological toll of operating in an environment where the ROE is not just a legal document, but a constant life or death judgment call?
All right, for the tour of Ramadi, the rules of engagement followed a legal document. Of course, it's briefed to every soldier. We have a responsibility to protect. We have the right to protect ourselves, to protect innocents, and we have a right to protect our fellow soldiers, peers, enablers, anyone who's an asset to us. That's the ROE. Now, if we determine an individual to be hostile, and that hostile was defined in many ways in Ramadi, it enabled us to engage the enemy and kill him. So, for example, when I first got there,
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
they told us that the rules of engagement was if you see a man in a black mask, kill him.
Okay.
If you see a person talking on the phone, a cell phone, and observing American forces, and you interpret that to be, and this is where it gets a little vague, but it was clear. If you see that talking on the cell phone and observing American positions, kill him. If there was another ROE where and this is based on a prior incident where the enemy organization had gone into the city and had stolen dump trucks, and they filled them with explosives. One of those dump trucks approached an American observation post filled with 35 Americans and 35 Iraqi army soldiers. And it breached the first line of defense and detonated. So to avoid that, we shut down the street and we made it one way as opposed to a two-way street. And then we received intelligence that the event had repeated itself. Several dump trucks were again stolen. They were believed to be filled with explosives. And then rather than wait for them to approach any American position, all dump truck drivers were to be considered combatants. And in our situation, we ended up engaging a dump truck. And we ended up killing the driver and the passenger. So rules of engagement, they're specific to your area of operation. But the foundation for for you to operate within that realm still lies within a legal document. In the first 6 months of operations in Ramadi, I didn't have to write a single statement. I called it was painting a picture of the activity in front of me. And based on my experience, again, and the mission that I was on and the intelligence that supported the mission, I engaged. As the months went into like 6 months thereafter, I believe someone made a decision way above my pay grade and said, hey, anytime these snipers start taking shots and they're killing people, we want them to write a statement. That statement becomes an official document and can be used against you if you're found to be working outside that box.
You transitioned from Marine infantryman to police officer, and then to Army National Guard sniper team leader. How did your team as a police officer prepare you from the urban chaos of Ramadi, and in what ways did it fail prepare you from the sheer scale of insurgent warfare?
All right, that's a great question. It is. That's a really good question. As I said earlier, there were things that were happening that I was seeing, and because I was a police officer for well over 10 years, it was almost 15 years. You go into war believing that you're going to see an enemy, and it's clear, it's decisive. You can't mistake what you're seeing in front of you. But when you're dealing in a type of warfare that involves an insurgency, it's completely different. And so you're using your judgment, you're using your training, you're using your experience, you're using your values, you're using everything that's taught to you to determine whether you're going to engage that person or not. And there were many cases where soldiers would not engage. They wouldn't do it because they believed they were not facing a threat. Whereas another individual might come along and say, that's a threat, and might engage and be completely right. The other soldier wasn't wrong. It's just there's a lot of contributing factors to that decision. Now, they're attacking you, well, then that's a whole different picture. But in the world of snipers and scouts and generally speaking, reconnaissance, you're interpreting an activity, you're going off training, education, and again, intelligence reports, the totality of circumstances. So how did police work help me? It helped me write statements and reports. It helped me be clear with messages that I was constantly providing to my headquarters. Hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's happening in front of me. I'm dealing with a military-aged male. He's walked the street 3 or 4 times in the same manner. He's carrying a knapsack. And I am now watching the individual dig a hole in the ground, or I'm watching him take what appears to be a device, and the manners are consistent with something suspicious in a packet, and he's dropping it into a hole. And in that moment, you have to decide, is that hostile? And to me, it was. I'll give you another example real quick. Do we have time?
Go ahead.
So we were in a position, our team was observing. It would have been pretty quiet all day. And I decided I was going to focus on this one particular part of the town. And me and my spotter were watching, and we're seeing this man climb up, and this man on the street, he's on the street in front of a courtyard wall. I know exactly what he was wearing. He was wearing a heavy leather jacket, white or beige colored, light colored sweater with a raised threaded pattern. And he was wearing red with white stripes, athletic pants and shoes. And he's squatting down, and he's holding 2 wires, one in each hand. I range him out to be around 872 meters, a little over a half mile. And he's putting the wires together and keeps clicking it. And initially I was going to take the shot. And I thought, there's no way someone would do that knowing that we're working out here like this. There's just no way. And when he put those wires together, the house behind him, the lights came on. You could just see a glow. But right up to that point, if I had shot him, it would have been still a good shot. It would have been a good kill, because he met what we call positive identification. Everything was there. Nobody in that city was friendly to us. They had taken there was a survey done where 85% of the city out of 400,000 people considered us the enemy. They were very hostile. So you do your best out there considering the circumstances.
Well, thank you for sharing that story to us, Mr. Hari. In your memoir, you stress that brotherhood is the only thing that sustains you in combat, yet you brought your men home. What was the hardest leadership decision you had to make to ensure that happened? A decision that perhaps you man did not even know you made.
Wow, good question. I'm impressed with your questions. Good question.
Thank you, sir.
So I ran my team as if we all had a phrase that we use, a skin in the game, meaning we are all responsible for each other. At the end of the day, I make the decision, but usually I rely on them with the planning. I rely on them to contribute things that I may have overlooked. And so we work together. Snipers are not loved individuals.
Okay.
Sometimes your unit despises you because they perceive you to be killers and murderers. And there's a difference between the two. I admit I killed out there. My team did as well. But to call us murderers, that we did not do. That being said, there were times that people, because they didn't understand how we were operating, or they didn't feel comfortable the way we were operating, I defended my team. I defended them. I was not going to allow a non-commissioned officer or officer to disparage them. I was not going to allow them to dictate our operations that may cause injury or, God forbid, and thank God.
I'm pretty confident talking into a mic. Hey, I'm doing it right now. But home projects, I second guess everything. Is that noise normal? Is that water damage? Who do I even call? That's where Thumbtack comes in. Just upload a photo or voice note, and it uses AI-powered search to match you with the right top-rated local pro. So instead of guessing, you get clarity and can hire with confidence. For your next home project, try Thumbtack. Hire the right pro today.
Did it, that one of them could have gotten killed. And when I went home on leave for 2 weeks, because it's a year-long tour, all I could think about was getting back to my team because I was responsible for them. I was 40 years old, leading 3 men that were in their 20s. Like, I don't think none of them were over the age of 21. Off the top of my head, I don't think anyone. I think one of them became 21 out there. So I was, you know, I was in charge of that. I had son who was already 19 years old. So they were just the age of my oldest son. And the way I looked at it was, I'm going to treat these men the way I would want my son treated by a leader and a warrior. And that every fight that we were going to get into, it was going to be justified, but we were going to win. I made that decision. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything, but you don't go in there thinking you're going to lose either. That's not going to help you. Because if a problem arises in the middle of a fight, you solve it. You got no other choice. That's how I looked at it.
Well said. Well said, Mr. Hari. In your opinion, what is the biggest lie we will tell veterans about coming home? What is the one thing you wish stranger on the street would understand about the person you are now versus the person you were before Ramadi?
I believe, and this may sound cliche, and I hated saying it when I came to that realization, but war changes you. And it changes you, and that change is unique to every individual. I heard veterans say, I'm kinder, I'm more gentle, I'm more patient, things bother me less. And for me, I was numb. I didn't drink. I barely participated with my family. The transition was so quick. And what people have to understand is a National Guard unit, when it comes home and it's released, it goes across the state. National Guardsmen come from across the state. And so your best friend in the Army during that tour could be 3 hours away. And so you find yourself isolated and you're lost with your own thoughts. Sure, you might get a phone call, but you're not getting the same kind of support. I think I was a bit more prepared than most others because I was older. And I do a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading before I went to war and all throughout my life. And one of the best books that actually trained me to understand what was going to happen to me was a book by David Grossman. And it was on combat. He wrote 2 books, but his best one was on combat. The reason he wrote the second book is because there were many people who came forward and said, you give this process that happened to warriors, and I didn't suffer any of that. And so he wrote a second book and goes, well, this class of warriors, they're considered mature warriors. And they look at it like this, and this is how they sustain themselves. And this is how you apply what you know to train in. And I follow those principles. I followed them. And what I didn't know very well, or something I couldn't explain very well, I would fall back on other instructors to help me. I would have them send me material. I read it. I would break it down, and then I incorporate it into our training. So everybody is different. Everyone. I have personally, over my lifetime, nearly 60 months of combat. That's 5 years. And I think what's gotten me through some of the most difficult days is I feel grateful. I feel grateful. And I remind myself, be grateful, count your blessings. Because there's some guys that never made it home. There's some women that never made it home, regardless of what branch they were, because we lost sisters out there too. And there's some that came home and never recovered. So the National Guard has a very difficult situation because their soldiers are isolated. And the Army, it's going through this difficult period too, but they're all together on a base where resources are immediately available to them. Not saying it's any easier, but I'd rather be in that environment than sit at home by myself. I can't speak for what my team went through after the war because I was from New Jersey and they were from Pennsylvania. And when I came back home, I resumed my career. When they went back home, they resumed their lives. And we barely stayed in touch. In fact, I only talked out of the four of us, we were a sniper heavy team. I only talked to one. And he became one. You talk about a warrior. His name is, we call him Joey Bennett. He was a tanker. He volunteered to become a sniper. He was quite successful in Ramadi as a sniper on my team. And then he got home and he went infantry and then he went to sniper school. When he got done with that, he went to Afghanistan. He returned from Afghanistan and decided to become a warrant officer. And he was selected to fly helicopters. So he became an Apache helicopter pilot. And then he went back to Afghanistan as an Apache helicopter pilot in combat. That's what the National Guard can do to an individual who wants to do it. And so everybody's a little different. Everybody's roadmap for resilience and tolerance and acceptance is a little different. But the one thing I think that the most successful ones is they're grateful for what's in front of them. I still find life beautiful. With everything that's happened in front of me, I still find life beautiful. I enjoy the sun coming up. I enjoy walking out on a crisp autumn day. I love swimming in the ocean. I love being around my children who are adults. I love having the ability to take my grandson to school. What happened
Mr.
to
Hart,
me? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yes. Mr. Hari, looking at the current geopolitical climate and the rise of the urban warfare globally, like Ukraine, Gaza, and well, in Burma or Myanmar, what lessons from Ramadi in 2005 are most relevant to modern soldiers and leaders today?
I'm not. I'm not sure I understand the question properly. In terms of what? What?
I-
In
In
terms of
terms
leadership,
comparing,
resilience.
yes, those topic.
This goes across the board to anybody who's going to make a career in the military. Let me first say this. If you're going to join the United States Army, you have one purpose: to support or participate in combat operations. Because we are historically an army that goes to war. Make no mistake of that. So if you're going to be a leader, then you should do everything you can to attempt to perfect all the processes to engage in a kinetic environment and win. That's your job. The second part of that is that individual, that soldier, in whatever role they're playing in the military to support offensive operations to win a war or a conflict or resolve a situation, don't stay within the Army realm. Seek your knowledge outside. Make yourself better. Because sooner or later, everything that you do in the military and outside, one cascades into the other, and it'll make you a better person. And the bottom line to all of that, it requires discipline. I tell this to my soldiers all the time. Discipline is key to life. The reason is because it enables freedom. And people can't correlate that until you explain it to them. And I say it like this, things that connect with the individual. If you have discipline and you go to the gym and you work out every day and you understand what it does to your mind mentally, and you understand what it does to your body, it's growth and development. And if you do it for the rest of your life, you're not training for a summer day. You're not training for a specific event. You're just training for life. You won't be a slave to disease. You have freedom. If you look at your finances and you say, I'm going to discipline myself, how I spend my money, I'm going to think strategically, I'm going to think immediate steps. Whatever discipline you begin with, however you approach it, and you discipline yourself with your finances, you escape debt, which equates to freedom. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense, Mr. Hurry. And to wrap up our discussion for today, you've been a guest on several podcasts. But if you could sit down with one person, a current high ranking general, a politician, a rookie soldier, to ensure they read your book and understood its message, what would it be and why?
This is just me, and I'm not going to speak for everyone. I'm just going to speak for myself. And I've had to come to terms with who I am. I knew why I rose my right hand and swore an oath to the Constitution. I know why I did it. And I knew where I was going because I chose the infantry. And we are a force of destruction. So when you send us in, we're going to do certainly one thing to you. We're going to destroy you. And so I understood and I read as much as I could to get me through those difficult times. What I wish this country or any government official is, if you're going to use me, then let me do what I do best. Don't come at me with made up laws or rules of engagement that make no sense or limit my ability to maneuver against an enemy force. We go in there not so that we can be killed and someone's going to write a nice obituary about us. We go in there to win. So let us do what we do best, or don't use us at all. There isn't that many of us. The American Armed Forces is about 1.2 million, maybe a little smaller, a little larger, depending on a day, week, month, year. So use us wisely. That's my word of warning to them.
Well said, very well said, Mr. Hurry. And can you please invite our listeners to support One is a Warrior?
I'm sorry, to support.
Yes, can you please,
Okay.
where do people can buy your book?
Primarily off of Amazon. Go to Amazon, look, type in the name One is a Warrior, add my name, Harry Martinez. It should pop up automatically. It's gotten some great reviews and it's continuing to grow. And understand that the book is the book is about combat. It's very raw. It's not for the lighthearted, but it's to bring understanding that every decision that was made there was made by a human being. And that comes out in the book. And I think that's what's different than most other books. I'm going to put you there. I'm going to surround you with my thoughts, and you're going to see the end result of it.
Well, people, let's support Mr. Harry Martinez, because if you support him for so more and more, one is a warrior to rise. And I have one more question before I will let you go, Mr. Harry. You have lived several lives: a Marine, a cop, sniper, as well as an author. Now, advocate for moral injury awareness. If you had to choose just one of those identities that best defines you today, which one?
The Marine. That is the foundation of my character. I understood that the world isn't easy. I understood that I had to make decisions based on my training and education. And I had to build relationships. And that if you put me anywhere in this world and I have to find you, I will. It gave me that confidence. And it shaped me for the rest of my life. I mean, to this day, as I sit in front of you, I'm a product of the United States Marine Corps.
And congratulations for that, Mr. Hari. And I will invite you again to please do come over on my abstract essay and let's talk about the writing process of One is a Warrior. So, Mr. Hari Martinez, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great evening.
Maricam people, see you soon.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.